most of you very know very well circles. Shall I rock? Sure. Thank you for coming today. This new event we're doing more in a cozy environment, I guess. Middle of August, that's it take. But as you know, here at Circles, we like to promote entrepreneurship, and we like to the best skills when we have skilled members with us, or when we have people that we can invite them to explain what they're really good at, that we can share this knowledge and learn from it. So today we're going to have Matt talking about the client attraction formula, which I think all of us need in any business. So this can really apply to all of us, and I hope that we can make the best usage of that information. Again, for those that you might not know, Circles, we're a co-living and networking for entrepreneurs, so that they can grow both professionally and personally. Yeah? Thank you. Please.
So this is the most chilled presentation I've ever done. I don't think I've ever had a cushion on my lap before, but we're in Spain, right? So why not? So thanks to those of you that have made an effort to come here. Charlotte, and I didn't get your name. What was your name? Ramonet?
Yes.
Okay. And where have you come from?
Lithuania.
No, like from Barcelona today? I was going to say, you have the medal for traveling the furthest if you come all the way from Lithuania.
I live in Russia.
Okay, cool. Yeah. So awesome for making the effort up here, because we all know that it's not easy to get here, right? So you must be pretty dedicated to getting some more clients. So just by a quick show of hands, just remind me, I know a few of you, but how many of you either run your own business or have your own freelance clients? Okay, most of us, amazing. And keep your hand up if you've ever had a nightmare client that you just wish you'd never taken on. Okay, most of us. And how many of you would have fired that client, but you didn't because you were worried about money or brand reputation or something, right? Okay, cool. So most of us have had this experience. So what I want to kind of talk you through today, and I'm going to try and keep this as interactive as possible, is just what I've learned over the last 5 or 6 years of running my own agency, but also I've had the privilege of coaching hundreds of highly talented creatives, from award-winning designers to internationally recognized photographers, and helping them to essentially attract the right clients. One of the things that I've realized is that you can do something you love, but if you have a bunch of clients you hate, then you end up hating your business, right? So before I jump into the actual kind of content of today, I just want to tell you a very quick story. So back in 2015, I've chosen this photo. I was sat, this is a ski slope in the Canadian Rockies, and it was before being a digital nomad was cool, by the way. And I had built this life up on Instagram of basically one of those accounts that was like, Mondays are fine, you just hate your job, right? Look at me, I'm amazing, traveling the world. I had a small digital agency, and I was basically trying to live the 4-hour work week. And so I took this photo and I was about to upload it to Instagram. I don't know if any of you have ever had this feeling where you're about to post something online and something stops you because you realize that you're portraying an image to the outside world that isn't really true to kind of what's going on behind the scenes. And I can see some nods, so you're all guilty of that, right? And so for me, this was like extreme. Although I posted this photo, I knew that as soon as I got back to my hotel room, I'd have hundreds of emails, I'd have missed calls from clients, and as soon as I got off that ski slope, I just wanted to be anywhere else. And so I was essentially trying to escape from my business. What I realized was that I'd left a pretty secure job with one boss to start my own business where I now had 20. And it was stressful, it was unfulfilling, and I hated pretty much everything about it. And that's quite a interesting life dilemma, because you have all of these amazing things and everyone sends you messages from the outside being like, oh my God, you're so lucky, you're doing this. I'm stuck in this 9-to-5 office. And part of me kind of wished that I was still there. And so the universe kind of interfered, and literally as I took this photo, this message popped up on my phone from my mum that said, please call me as soon as you can. which is like never a good message to get from someone when you're the other side of the world. And so it turned out that a close family friend had died quite suddenly and unexpectedly. And so I came back to the UK. And for any of you who've ever had one of these moments where someone's got sick or you've ended a relationship or maybe even like COVID, you kind of sit back and you have that perspective shift where you're like, what am I actually doing with my life? Am I happy? And there was this incredible quote I remember from Steve Jobs, and he said, I used to look at myself in the mirror every day and I'd ask myself, if today was the last day of my life, would I still be doing what I'm about to do today? And if the answer was no, too many days in a row, I knew something had to change. And so that was the exact position I was in. And so I was kind of at the bottom really, but I didn't want to share it with anyone because it sounded like white male privilege, basically. Or cry me a river, you're traveling the world and you're not happy. And it's kind of felt like this internal, like dilemma. But I was lucky enough to have some really great friends and mentors. And I started working with coaches and other people to kind of unpack what was going on. And essentially what I realized was there was like a big difference between mastering your craft, which for me at the time was marketing and social media and communication, and running a business. They were actually two very different things. And so I realized that like myself and a lot of the people we were working with had kind of nailed this bit, right? We'd smashed the art of creativity, but we totally failed on the business of creativity. Like finding the right clients, for example, as one thing. Getting paid on time, getting paid enough, delivering it in a way where you weren't just trading your time for money and every single thing that you did relied on you. And so I'd kind of created this prison for myself. And I was like, how the hell do I escape this? And so that's basically what I want to share with you today, is what I learned in those last 5 or 6 years. I kind of put everything I learned into a book, which I didn't think would become an international bestseller on Amazon, but it did, so that was pretty cool. I've got a little slide at the end here where you guys can just scan a QR code if you want to get a free copy of this. I'll give everyone here a free copy. But I said I'd try and keep this presentation to about 30 minutes. So obviously I can't cover everything, but I have put everything that I learned into that book, so you can all grab a copy. Today, I just want to focus on one thing. I just want to focus on clients, because if there's one thing that determines the quality of your business, it's the quality of your clients. And I'm lucky enough now to sit here today, hand on heart, and say I actually love every single one of the clients that I have. And they also pay me what I asked them to pay me. So that's quite a nice feeling as well. And so today, what I do, I ended up kind of transitioning from that agency more into consulting. And so today we just work with creative agency owners, and we teach them how to master the business of creativity so they can actually do the work that they want to be doing, and so they can actually go and have an impact out there with that work as well. So it all starts with clients, right? The quality of your business really is determined by the quality of your clients. So I'd love to just like hand over to you guys for a second, and I'd love to know, like, what are some of the things that happen if you don't have the right clients? What are some of the things that you experience in your business or in your life if you don't have the right clients? Frustration. Frustration, yeah, okay. So let's put these on this side. Frustration, okay. What else?
You get like a lack of like motivation.
Okay, yeah. Lack of motivation. What else?
Not getting paid enough.
Yeah, not getting paid enough.
Not growing the direction you want to go actually.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, not getting paid. Yeah. What happens when you multitask? What does that actually result in? What's that a symptom of? Trying to do too many things at once. Yeah.
Because maybe unvalued, maybe?
Say again. Unvalued, yeah. Undervalued or unvalued, yeah. Anything else? Think back to those projects where you just wanted to fire that client. What else was happening? Don't lie to me, I know you've all had them.
Not every for more work.
Yeah.
You worked harder than it's supposed to be.
Yeah, so like overworked.
Overworked.
Yeah.
But like, the slides keep on,
Say again?
Lose time.
Lose time, yeah.
You lose your quality time, no?
Yeah, so like stress. Yeah, okay, cool. What about if you have the right clients? What are some of the things that you get if you have the right clients?
Proud.
You're proud, yeah. That went quite nicely with that sound, actually. Yeah, you team that up. You feel proud?
Obviously motivation,
Yeah, you're motivated, yeah.
good pay, or
We have money.
You have money. What do you get?
Growth also.
Yeah,
Enjoying everything.
yeah. Enjoyment,
consistency.
consistency, yeah, that's a nice one.
Freedom, purpose.
Ooh, yeah, I like that. Yeah, anything else? I mean, that's a pretty good list, right? If we don't have the right clients, we're frustrated, we lack motivation, we don't get paid enough, we feel undervalued and overworked, and we have a lack of time and stress. If we have the right clients, we feel proud of our work, we feel motivated, we get paid and we have enough money, we feel like we're growing, we enjoy what we're doing, it's consistent and it feels purposeful. How important would you say it is to have the right clients? Pretty important, right? So there's 3 big ideas that I just want to kind of explore with you today. And as I said, I'll try and keep this as interactive as possible, so I'm not just talking at you. But there's essentially like 3 concepts that I've learned that basically allow you to go from this stuff on the left-hand side here over to the right. Like if you want to make this transition, there's only really 3 things that you need to do consistently. So I'm going to share them like this. I'm going to share them as a big idea, and then I'm going to kind of dive in and deconstruct. And if anyone's got any questions, then I might just kind of ask things as we go along. So the first big idea I want you to get is the real value lives inside your story. So if you think about it, I think I had this conversation like Tuba the other night. You were like, everyone share a fun fact about themselves. And it's so funny when you get people to do that exercise because nobody has the same fact. And what it reminded me of is like no one here has the exact same story. No one here has the exact same journey to get to where they've got to today. And if you think about it, like that's the only thing that's actually unique about us. And so the way that I like to think about this, if you think about communication with your target clients or your ideal clients, shall we call them, is like if you think about an iceberg, you've got this layer on top here, right? And this is usually what everybody is presenting to the outside world. And people focus on things like their portfolio, right? The work they've done or the projects they've done in the past. Maybe they're trying to like develop a unique style. What else do we do? What else do we show to the world to make our clients come to us or try and make us more attractive to clients? Expertise, yeah. How do you do that normally? How do you show people that you're an expert in this field?
Resumes. Like
Yeah.
clients.
Yeah, so case studies. Yeah. Case studies or testimonials. What else do we do?
Content.
Content, yeah. Yeah. Anything else?
Testimonials.
Yeah, case studies or testimonials, yeah. What else? Where else do we showcase what we do? What are we all really focused on?
I do find it's like a big, I mean, I think all englobes the thing of trust, no? Like, but I want to empathize with them.
Yeah.
So they can believe everything I show, like the portfolio and everything. So this engagement,
Mm-hmm.
it makes more like, hey,
Yeah, so you want to build that trust. That actually, I'm going to talk about that in a minute. There's one more thing that like literally everyone says to me they think they need to fix.
Accomplished. Like a success stories maybe we show also.
Yeah, so I'd probably put that under case studies. You're all obsessed with this one thing. We want to make our website the best, right? We want to make our website and our brand the best. So this is what we show, and I talk about this as surface value. This is surface value. This is the stuff that we're all showing to the outside world. The problem with this is, can other people have a similar style to you or even a similar website to you? Do other people have case studies and client testimonials? So when we're really trying to like attract the right clients, this isn't differentiating us from anybody else, right? So we have this first layer, and then we have the second layer. And this is the experience or the experiential layer. And this is what clients experience when they actually become a client. And so that's how we treat our customers. So it's like our customer service, right? It's our, what else? What else do clients experience? You talk about like trust or delivery. Like, do we actually deliver what we say we're going to deliver? What else creates the experience for a client when they actually become a client? Process, yeah. Quality, yeah. Yep. Right, so this is the experience level. But people only get to see this once they actually become a client, right? And so they either stay with you and they want to keep working with you, or they leave. The layer that like most people miss is what I call the deep value. Your deep value, and it's locked up right at the bottom here. And your deep value is made up of everything in your life. So it's made up of the people in your network, the skills that you have, the books that you've read, the places that you've traveled to, the things you're passionate about, stuff that you geek out on. And like I said at the start, no one else has that exact combination of those things. Only you have this. But if you want to attract your ideal clients, your dream clients, the people that you can actually be yourself around, and you can show up in flip-flops and have a cushion on your leg when you're doing a presentation, if you want to attract those people, then you have to find a way to bring this stuff to the surface. And the best way to do that, the vehicle for that, is story. Because when I hear Kevin's story about where he's from and the people he knows and the experiences that he's had in his life, then I get to understand Kevin. When I see Kevin's portfolio and website and everything else, that doesn't really tell me anything about Kevin. And so as humans, we actually connect through story. And really, people talk about B2C and B2B. The way I want everyone here to think about business is human to human. It doesn't matter whether you're working with great big corporates or small businesses, you're connecting with other humans. And so the way to attract other people like you, if you think about your friends, your closest friends, like what do they all have in common? You. Yeah, absolutely. They're like you in some way, right? We relate to people like us. We like people who are like us. And this stuff at the top is not going to tell, like all of this isn't going to tell anyone anything about you. So the first step to attracting the kind of clients you really want, the ones who are going to respect you, share your values, pay you on time, is actually just sharing more of your story and sharing more of who you are. So I'm just curious, how many of you do this consistently? How many of you? Yeah.
And do you mean with that, for example, you have a website and you have about text, or is that a story, or does it need to go deeper than that?
Well, you know, it is a story depending on what's in the about text, but what about if on your homepage you had an introductory video of you and you told a story, like the story I told you at the beginning of this presentation? How do you think that would change the type of people when they landed on that website and read that story? How do you think that would change the type of people that then inquired? Or engagement, but they're going to be polarized, right? They're either going to resonate with that thing and be like, that's amazing, I want to know more about this, or they're going to be like, that was weird.
Yeah, but you don't need them.
Exactly, yeah, 100%. I just want to tell a couple of quick stories about clients. So this was Scott. When I first met Scott, I was asking him about this. I was like, tell me more about your business. And he was like, oh, I run a design studio and I'm passionate about design. And I was like, it's cool, Scott, but no offense, you sound like every other design owner that I've ever met. I was like, what makes you different? And he started telling me about these things. Oh, we've worked with these brands, or this is our process, and our clients love us because they trust us. I'm like, cool, now you're talking about experiential value. Tell me about you. And eventually through digging, I got him to tell me about some of the mountains that he'd climbed and some of the passions and hobbies that he had and why he wears a certain clothes that he wears. And when you see that from the outside perspective, you realize it all links together. This guy was clearly positioned to work with other people like him, like outdoor and adventure brands. So I was like, Scott, why are you wasting your time with all these clients that you don't really connect with? You're just doing it because you think that they're going to pay you for it. What would it be like if you only worked with people that you genuinely cared about and connected to? And he was like, now he's done this and made this transition, he said it's a totally different feeling when he shows up to his business every day. Not only that, I got a text from him like maybe 6 months ago or a year ago, and all it said was, we just got Red Bull as a client, ! And the reason that was cool is because when we first spoke and he was thinking about working with us, he told me all of these goals, but I said, what's another goal? What's a stretch goal or like a secret goal that you're maybe like too afraid to tell? And he was like, well, if I think about my business in 5 years' time, one of the things I'd love to do is work with companies like Red Bull. I was like, okay, cool. Let's work towards that. And like, this was one of the biggest aspects of that, because he didn't get Red Bull because they came and saw his portfolio. He got Red Bull because he started telling his story to people. And when he was I think he met the contact when he was in a climbing center, right? And he was telling about his story and all of this stuff. And he was like, oh, I need to introduce you to this guy. And then they got chatting, and it turned out he was one of the marketing managers for Red Bull. And you start telling your story and people connect with you. Same with Rachel. Like when I first met Rachel, she really had like a lot of confidence issues around approaching clients, because she was like, oh, it just feels a little bit salesy and a little bit awkward. But then when we focused her on actually finding the clients that she could actually help and the people that were like her, that shared the values, and she started sharing her story, naturally she just started attracting those kind of people. Celeste is a great case study, because I always tell people about clients that have won business through email. People always see these things like cold email doesn't work, no one reads email these days, outreach doesn't work. It's like, well, if you know what to say and who to say it to, and you connect with someone like a human, not like some kind of transaction, then it does work. And so like, you guys might not know, but there's a big organization in the UK called English Heritage. And we helped her essentially niche down into this area because of her story. So one of the things that we do with our clients is we figure out like, what is their story? And we actually get them to go back through their life and look at like the highs and the lows and the cool things, the people they've met and all of this different stuff. And we're like, where is this pointing you? Who are the clients that this is pointing you towards? And when you figure that out, you realize that you're actually in a unique position to solve a problem for someone. So everybody shouldn't be your client. And I see this way too much in like, especially in the creative space. It's like, who's your client? Well, anybody who's got a budget and wants to pay me to do what I do, right? Well, what about if this service that you offer is 10 times as valuable to this person as it is to this person? Who of those two should you work with? Pick the person who's most valuable to. And that's all going to be locked up inside your story. Just before I go on to the next big idea, has anyone got any questions or kind of comments around that? You sure, Kev? I feel like you're going to say something poignant.
I'll let you know.
Are you sure? Okay. Feel free to jump in. So big idea number one is that your real value is locked up inside your story. Big idea number two is we need to sell symptoms, not services. So what do I mean by that? Well, if you think about marketing as the way that most people attract clients, the way that I think about it is just communication rather than marketing. Like, how do we communicate with the people that we want to attract? And there's two types of communication, as far as I'm concerned: passive communication and active communication. So passive communication is like other people talking about your business, word of mouth, people referring you, people direct inquiries to your website, people finding you through SEO or content. And active communication is you going out there, going to networking events, reaching out to the kind of clients that you want to work with, actually engaging with people who comment on your content and starting those conversations, using email to actually engage with people. So basically direct marketing. So just out of those two, just honestly, by a show of hands, how many of you focus more on the passive side of communication? Like in terms of your overall communication strategy? Would you say you're more passive or active? So if you do more of these things, if this is how you get most of your work, put your hand up. Yeah, 50%. And if this is how you get most of your work, put your hand up.
So 50-50, but I do a lot of active communication.
Yeah.
Passive is just like passive
What's
is
happening?
passive, right?
Yeah.
So it's just there.
Mm-hmm. Typically what I find when we're working with our clients is like, most of the time it's this until they don't have enough work, and then it's this. And then it's like, oh, where's the next project going to come from? I don't know. Let's go to some networking events. Let's reach out to some people. So one of the things that I encourage people to do is just to keep this as their primary mode of communication, is to try and be just more active, even when they're busy. Because what happens, we know that there's a cycle, isn't there? Even when you first engage with that client, they're like, oh, I want to work with you. There's a process that you go through before they actually pay you and that money comes in the bank. So what happens for most people is they're like, oh, we've got this project, we're really busy right now, we don't need any more work. Okay, great, we'll stop being active. And then we have this lull, and then that's what creates the feast and famine. So we actually want to just keep being active all the time. And the thing that stops most people being active is this guy. Who's seen Wolf of Wall Street? Has everyone seen this film? Okay, great, everyone gets the reference. So, sell me this pen. Right? Most people don't want to be active because they don't want to be Jordan Belfort. They don't want to be salesy. They don't want to be pressury. They don't want to come across as that person. And that makes total sense, like nor do I. The reason most people fail not to do this is, number one, they're not being active enough. So when the work dries up, they kind of are forced to be this. Like, oh, we've got no work, so we just have to post about what we do and remind people of what we do. But the second reason is because most people don't understand how humans make decisions. So when we're making a considered purchase, everybody actually goes through each one of these 6 stages. So I'll talk you through these in a second. But just think about this in the last, just bring something to mind, the last like considered purchase that you made. So I don't mean like, okay, I'm just going out and buying a nice pair of trousers. I mean like actually something that you actively thought, should I spend money on this or not? You probably started at stage 1 where you didn't have a problem, like you were kind of satisfied with your current situation. And then something happened. Either a new product was presented to the market, like, oh, the new iPhone came out and my iPhone doesn't do this, so now there's like a gap. Or the thing that you were using stopped giving you what it was always giving you, like it broke, right? Or something happened that just meant that you became aware of a problem. So all of a sudden we have like this problem that we're aware of. Now, there's usually a period of time between stage 2 and 3. In fact, how many people here have got something that they're not happy with, but they haven't actually yet decided that they're going to do something about it? They're just aware of it. And they're like, they haven't actually made like, I'm going to go out and I'm going to spend time, money, and energy fixing this. Most of us have got something like that in our life, right? And then something happens. And in the UK, we have a phrase that's the straw that broke the camel's back. Something usually comes along where it's like, there's one last thing that's too heavy. And we're like, enough is enough. I need to go and do something about this. And so we decide to take action. And then what happens? We go out into the market. If you're anything like me, you spend way too long on Amazon and YouTube looking at reviews and watching videos, right? Is this thing any good? And then when we finally get to that point, we're like, we're going to buy something, we buy it. And then I don't know if anyone else is as weird as me, but I then do that thing where I go back and watch the reviews and kind of decide if it was definitely the right decision. Yeah? Okay, not just me then. So the cool thing is your ideal clients are going through this exact same process, right? But what most of us are doing is most of us are trying to talk to people at stage 4, down here. So I sell websites. I need to find someone who wants to buy a website right now, right? I'm in that market. The problem with stage 4, it seems like the most logical place to engage with people. But if you think about if stage 1 to 6 represents 100% of your addressable market, the people at stage 4 are about 5 to 10% of that entire market. It's actually one of the smallest markets of people right now who are actually out there looking for that thing. The other thing is, who's trying to get the attention of people at stage 4? Everyone. Yeah, your competitors, everybody else. So it's actually, as well as the smallest, it's one of the most competitive. Now think about stage 4 buyers. Think about when you're at stage 4, you've decided you're going to buy this thing, you've gone out there doing your research. What is like the main criteria that you're using to decide what you're going to buy?
It's a combination of price and
Yeah, so price is one, yeah. How much does it cost? What else do you want to know?
If it's free resolving your problem.
Yeah. Price, yeah, like quality. Does this thing actually work? Is it going to deliver what I want? What else? Something that Amazon are very good at.
How to get deliver your.
Yeah, how quickly can I get it? Time. So as a service provider, we're now stuck in the good, fast, cheap trap. People just want things as good as possible, as quickly as possible, for as cheap as possible. So you're talking to people at stage 4 who are one of the smallest markets, most competitive, and they're comparing on time, price, and quality. That doesn't leave much room for maneuver, right? And you've probably seen this in real life. Who's seen like a Facebook post where someone says like, oh, I'm looking for a photographer or something, and within 10 minutes there's like 100 comments? Have I never seen one of those posts? Yeah, that's stage 4. So when we're thinking about this concept of symptoms versus services, what we actually want to do is we want to try and engage with people at stage 1 or 2 of the decision-making process. People who either aren't aware they have a problem, or they're aware of their problem but they haven't yet decided they're going to do something about it. And those people don't know what the solution is, so they're not looking for the solution. So all the time we're banging the drum of I sell a website, I'm a photographer, I do this thing, those people aren't hearing that because it doesn't resonate with them at all. The only people that is resonating with are people at stage 4. So what we want to do is swap services, what we sell, for symptoms, what the client is experiencing. So do you remember at the start I said, what happens when we get the wrong clients? And you gave me a list of things. So rather than me coming here and saying, hey, I run a business accelerator program for creatives and I can talk all about that, you might think, well, how does that relate to me? But if I said, say I'm going to talk about how to be less stressed and have more time and more money and find the right clients, that's going to appeal to you because you know that they're your symptoms that you're experiencing as a result of not having the right clients. And so it's the same for your ideal clients. So if you get really good at knowing what's going on in their head and in their world, what they're experiencing, and you start talking about that, then you will start attracting those people. Does that make sense? So we want to swap services for symptoms. Can't remember what my next slide is. Just reiterating my point. It's good when the slides back up what you say. Okay, cool. Couple of quick case studies to show you that this actually works. So Alessandro is an animator, and when we first started working with him, he really could not break. It was about 15K. It was like his highest ever project that he had. But he kept getting these people coming to him with like, we have no budget, we have no budget, we have no budget. And so we just changed the way that he was communicating. We changed the things that he was talking about. And in one conversation, he managed to more than double a client's budget. Because once you start talking about people's symptoms and you start explaining how to solve those problems, they subconsciously actually give you credit for having the solution. And they start to trust you as a guide and as a partner rather than just someone who's there to make a transaction.
They believe that they've discovered the problem because of you.
Yeah, 100%. And a lot of the time they have, right? They weren't aware of it before, if you do this in the right way. Dan increased his rates by over 200% so he could fund his new studio space. This is one of my favorites. This is probably our biggest ever return on investment. When Will started working with us, he was selling logos for £1,500. And then by the end, he was selling 15K branding projects. And he wasn't doing that much more work. He was doing a bit more stuff, but not 10 times the work, right? Just because he was changing the way that he communicated with his marketing. And we got a bunch of these like from our Facebook group and from our thing on our Slack channel. So it's not all about the money, but no one's ever got annoyed at us for helping them make more money. What it's really about is about being the guide and being treated by those clients as a partner rather than just a worker. Like we've all had those clients who want something, but they just don't have the skills to do it themselves. And they want to direct everything, right? Or we want this here and we want that there, and we want this pink, we want that green. And it's just a nightmare to work with. By communicating differently and changing the stage, it positions you as a partner, as an expert, as the guide that's going to take you over the mountain rather than the donkey that's carrying the bags. So this is my final point, and then we'll wrap up. The final idea I want to share with you is that we actually want to audition our prospects. And I used to be so guilty of this, right? When I first launched my business, it was like, hey, I heard you build websites. I do. I need a website. Cool. How much does it cost? Roughly this much. Great. Let's go. And that would be the end of that sales conversation, right? What I've learned since then is if you don't interrogate people, if you don't audition your clients, then A, you're going to let bad clients through the net. And B, you're actually going to give them something that they don't need or that's not going to solve the problem. So I want to talk to you about a concept that I talk to my clients about a lot, which is transactional versus transformational. Building a website for someone and saying, hey, I need a website, and you just giving it to them is a transaction. That's walking into a store, grabbing a product and paying for it. Transformation is when you take time to really understand what that client is struggling with. What are their pain points? What are their problems? What are the things that are stopping them from getting more of what they want? And you actually help them to get from A to B. You actually design a product or design a service that makes that transformation, not just that transaction. And so to understand this better, I always use the metaphor of two islands. So when your client comes to you, they're always on island A, right? They're always here. And where they're trying to get to is island B, because it's got like a little cave and some water and stuff, right? Obviously. And you've got to figure out how you're going to get them there. So that's what transformational services are about. They're about saying, okay, well, we could build a bridge, or we could take a speedboat, or we could take a plane. Like, how are we going to get from A to B in the way that you want to get from A to B? And not letting the client dictate the process. Because how many of us have ever had a client that's like, oh, we know we have to do X, Y, and Z, but can we just take these bits out? Or can we just have that instead? And you agree to it, and you realize that it doesn't get them any closer. It just kind of lands them halfway in the middle. And then who do they blame when they don't get to the other side? Who do they blame? Us, yeah, of course they do. It's not their fault, is it? Because we were the ones that said that we can get you there, but they just asked for the wrong thing. So we created something, and there's actually a free link to this if you guys want to download it. We created something called the one-page sales framework. I spent years and years around mentors who were just incredible at sales and incredible at this process of creating transformations. One of the reasons why I became a coach is because I wanted to give people that transformation. And sales is just really one way to do that. And so we created something called the one-page sales framework. And it's really just a process of making sure that you're actually solving the problem that your client has, and you're actually going to get them to where they want to be. You're not just creating that transaction. I haven't got a link to it here, but if you literally search for this, the one-page sales framework, and my name, then you'll find it. I think it's on YouTube, and there's like a download link to the actual framework. But there's three parts to it. The first part is setting up the conversation, letting the client know what this is about. And this is one of the most important things. How many of you have ever had a client on a call that you bookmarked like half an hour for, and you ended up talking for like 2 hours? Has anyone ever had one of those? Sort of few. Not enough people have got talking clients then. We used to get this all the time. Just talk us, hey, tell me more about your business. It's like an hour later and they're like still talking. So the setup is important because it's like, hey, this is what we're going to talk about today. This is how long we're going to talk about it for, and this is why we're going to talk about it. And so that means that you actually take control of that conversation rather than the client auditioning you. Like, hey, why should we work with your business? What can you bring to us? It's the other way around. We're actually auditioning them. Then we're going to look at the A to B, like where are they now? Where do they want to be? And then we're going to put our kind of doctor hat or our detective hat on, and we're actually going to diagnose what we think is the problem, not what they think is the problem. And if you get stage 2 clients, this bit's really easy. And then we're going to make the proposal. What most people do is they hear, hey, I need this thing, and they skip straight to this. We used to call that proposing on the first date. Get really eager, right? And that's usually when we get objections around price. So that's what we use in terms of the one-page sales framework. A few more client wins, but I just like these because when people specifically reference what they've done and how much they've sold and the transformation that they created for that client being like, oh my God, this is exactly what I need, I'm so excited, and having those transformational conversations, it changes how you feel about sales, it changes how you feel about marketing. You realize that you're actually delivering value for these people. You're not just making a transaction. And whether they become a client or not, sometimes just a process of uncovering the real problem and making someone realize, oh, I was heading in this direction trying to fix this thing when really this was the thing that was the problem. That in itself is a valuable conversation. And I've had plenty of people thank me just for having a sales conversation with them and not even ending up working with them as clients. So I like showing these because it's like this stuff actually works for one. So like hopefully that encourages you to go out and use these principles. But number two, it's like this is what it actually translates to in the real world. That's pretty much it. I'm curious, what was most valuable or what was your biggest insight or takeaway? Just shout some stuff at me. And if it's silent, I'll just mean it was rubbish and no one took anything.
I think that the points about connecting yourself, like the first point you made, I think really resonated with me, is like connecting yourself to the people you want to acquire as a client, customer.
Sharing your story, right?
Even though it's not as relevant to me, but I think it still is in a way. I think it does, yeah.
Maybe it's more relevant than you realize.
I think
Maybe
so.
try it and then see what happens to your sales.
So what I see is that a lot of people want progress into the strategy like that because they feel that they get out of their comfort zone because they need to get a lot more proactive in doing something. While the result of not doing it is actually staying in an uncomfortable zone, which is bad customers, bad quality of life, bad whatever. But they don't step out of there because they believe this proactiveness and it gets them on a difficult situation at that initial moment without realizing that this effort of transforming themselves and change brings a lot more things that they are going to enjoy the journey also a lot. No? But they just don't try because they're afraid.
Yeah, well, it's like the degrees of gratification, right? It's like this feels easier now to stay in this, even though it's not great, but going out and doing that thing is scary, right?
Exactly. I see that a lot.
Anyone else?
For me, the stages were very important to understand because my product service is like more nice to have, and I was blaming the strategy that I don't have a problem to sell, yeah. And now I understood that I don't even need a problem. I can just tell them how they can do better. Yeah, because I was always saying that, it's nice because I don't have a lot of competitors, but I don't have a problem to sell. And now I see that it's even better and wider.
Yeah, you can be a vitamin, not a painkiller. Right?
Yeah, I'm surprised.
Cool. Anyone else? Couple more?
I think the not transaction, transformative, I think that was the most interesting part for me. Because I think also I'm focusing on transforming businesses or helping them get better like it's my own business. But still when I'm explaining, it's like I'm explaining the services, like I'm focusing on that, I can do this, and it's going to transform me, but I'm not focusing on that. These services I can serve you, and yeah, I think that was the most interesting part.
Yeah.
Also about the giving the story, I'm still not sure, 100% sure it can be applied on all field, like all businesses, because I'm still keeping trying to, at least it's my goal, trying to my personal life than the professional life. But still, maybe I'm not going to be 100% honest or open about who am I. But still, it's like a personal branding before business branding. You should do the person. You should be interested person first. They should like you first, and they want to work with you whatever you are offering them. Yeah, that's the
I mean, another way to think about your story, right, is allowing people to see why you are in a unique position to solve a problem for them. So rather than thinking about just sharing your personal story, like this is what I had for breakfast, or this is what I did at the weekend, or whatever. Think about it like, what parts of my story could I share that would demonstrate that I can solve this problem that they've got, right? So for Scott, for example, he started telling stories around like the mountains that he'd climbed and like the clothes that he wore. So he realized that he was a consumer of those products. Therefore, he could help those brands. So when he told the stories about the adventures he's been on and how he'd seen that, his clients were like, oh, this is really valuable insight. So combine that now with your design knowledge and all of that stuff. I'm going to choose you over someone who's like never been on a hike before, because you understand the industry and our brand. And that's the power of like niching, is that when you realize like your whole story puts you in a unique position to solve a problem for someone. Like the reason we work with creative agencies is because I used to run one. The reason I help them with business is because like the mentors I've had and the people in my network. And so when I actually tell my full story, and I do that a lot and on social media and stuff, people are like, oh, he just gets things that I don't get because of his personal experiences in his life. And it will be the same for you. There'll be stuff that like people don't understand about the problems that you solve because they haven't had the experiences that you've had. They haven't read the books that you've read. They haven't met the people that you've met. So think about it more in the context of solving a problem rather than just like sharing what you had for breakfast because you want to share more of your personal life. Does that make sense?
Yeah. For your business, for example, you have even the passive marketing on your contents. You are focusing on yourself. You are putting yourself out there. It's more like a personal business for you, but it can't be applied. Or is it same for all businesses? We talked about website and content, for example. So the telling the story should be there too, or it's just mostly networking or active marketing. Let's say it should be there more because it's like a personal thing, getting some connections with the client. When you're networking, you can tell your story, you can talk about, you can involve yourself, the business. But the passive market, the website should include your story also, your content should include, it's a must, or it should be more active side.
I mean, nothing's a must, right? It's just a theory. But if you think about some of the most successful businesses, or not most successful because that's a very like generic term, but the strongest brands, right, in terms of like brand loyalty and brands that we love here, most of those brands have somebody at the front, like a face that you can think of. When you think of Tesla, who do you think of? When you think of Apple, who do you think of? Like, so you're kind of buying into that brand story and how it came about rather than just like the physical product. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does. I was thinking the big companies too, but you're right. You always, there's a face, you connect them.
Yeah, and that's why celebrities can do these crazy deals. You know, that's why like someone can start $1 billion tequila brand like The Rock, because he's The Rock, right? People buy that tequila because he's The Rock, not because they need a new tequila brand in their life. Like no one's waking up being like, there's just not enough range of tequilas. Yeah. Anyone else? Any questions or thoughts?
Yeah, this is more like a question that what would you recommend to someone who's like figuring out which type of clients they want? Because okay, maybe we understand like this, like the steps are super clear. I think it's super important to have them clear. But what would be like the next step to actually finding your ideal client?
So this is like going into our process a little bit more than I kind of had time for, but like the actual exercise we do is we get people to go back through their life and look at the themes in their life, right? So for me, it themes around business, creativity, psychology, communication, and then we look at, okay, like what are the industries that link closely to that? And so we actually kind of get those industries and those personas, and then we'll actually just like rate them in terms of how we would feel about working with those industries. Like, does that excite you? Do you think they have money to pay for what you do? And just kind of go through like a bit of a logical process. If you grab, that's my final slide actually. If you grab a copy of my book, I kind of talk about that a little bit more in the book. So hopefully you'll be able to follow that. If you just scan that QR code, it should take you to that page, hopefully.
I have a question. Like, how do you find the balance between, because you said the stage, the decision-making stage is the most people look at stage 4, but we should focus on stage 1 and 2. How, and that means active, like cold email or calling or no?
Not necessarily. Like if you talk in the passive, if you talk about symptoms rather than services. So if in your content and your website and everything, you talk about things that they're experiencing rather than that. It doesn't have to be active.
Because you're looking for these people that are not really aware of that problem?
Well,
are.
One is not aware, two is aware.
But then you need to, because they don't do any steps yet, so you are the one who needs to remind them of that they might need that or they want that or like, but then how we just tell our story, but you cannot like, you know, like send like a email like this, for example, or like, because it needs to be also short. So how do you have a tip for like how to find balance between sharing something but not too much?
Well, I'll give you an example from Scott, right? It's like we have 5 things. If we're reaching out to somebody cold that we've never met before, there's 5 things that you have to include. The first one is like a reason. Why are you getting in touch with them? Second one is a compliment. So something that you genuinely like about them. The third one is like an anchor, something you have in common. The fourth one is some value. And the fifth one is like a specific ask. So usually around the compliment and the value, you might say something like, hey, I came across your brand. Last year when I was hiking doing this, I used this and it literally saved me from -5 degrees, and I absolutely love that. So you've just told like a snippet of your story. And so then the next line you might say, you know, I'd love to connect over coffee because I think there are some ideas that I could bring, yada, yada. And just gives that human element, but it also shows that like you're in that world and you care about the product and that value rather than just like the transaction. So like a bit of your story can literally just be a sentence.
I was wondering. Thank you.
Should we go and get drunk or?
Yeah.
That's a helpful.